Hi, this is John here, and we're in our LG lab right now. This is where we do our washers and our drying presentations and tear aparts. One of the things we wanted to do is, in order to save time during the live presentation, is we went ahead and filmed a lot of this ahead of time so that we don't have to waste a lot of time showing you how screws come out and stuff. So what I'm going to talk about first is just touch on installation, what you have to do in order to install the tower unit. Now this is how it came out of the box. There was some shipping material I had to remove in there, and there's some accessories that I put in the dryer to kind of show you what came as part of the accessory kit. This is a steam dryer, so they gave you a little Y connector for your hoses, because we're going to have to connect cold water to the dryer also so that we can use the steam unit. We got some quick guides in here for the consumers, and these are nice. They have little sticky cups. They can kind of attach it to the sides of the unit. Quick reference guides. And then of course there's a full owner's manual with that. And then for the washer, we got a couple things. We got a little gooseneck for the drain hose. And then we have a little kit here which comes with your wrench to remove your shipping bolts. We got a little wire tie there so that your drain hose doesn't pop out of the drains. Little caps for when we remove the shipping bolts. And then the other thing that came with it is 2 sanding discs for the front. If you got a slick floor, you can go ahead and put those down. So we've got some pictures of that. We can show you that later. I'm just going to touch on a couple things. We also filmed some video on how the shipping bolts come on, so we'll include that later. So basically, just like any unit, put it in the place that it's going to be at. Go ahead and we'll level this unit, and then we'll go ahead and remove the shipping bolts, add the fill hoses, go ahead and hook up the pigtail, because you got a 220 dryer right here, so we need to install a pigtail on there. The washer already comes with its own power cord, so all we have to do is then plug that in, and then we're good to go. We'll get into installation checks for that, so you can run a quick test just to make sure everything's working correctly, and then we'll get into tear down this for the unit. What we're going to be doing a little bit later is we're going to be doing some electrical checks at the main board, so we want to show you how to access that. Kind of looks intimidating here, but it's real easy to access some of the components, and then we'll go out and break that down a little bit farther on how the units come apart. First thing we have to do is just make sure that the unit is unplugged. So I went ahead and unplugged the washer, and then I went ahead and unplugged the dryer. So everything is dead now. We'll just verify. Yeah, we're good to go. So first thing we got to do is remove this control panel here. Now to get to the 2 screws that hold this on, there's little caps on the sides here. Now don't pry these out. All you have to do is just push on these, and these will open up. So there's one right there, and I can pop the other one on the other side. All right, and then there's a Phillips head screw in there. So what we're going to go ahead and do is remove that Phillips head screw. There's one. And we'll go on the other side and remove the other one. All right, at this point, all we have to do is just grasp the control panel, and this will just snap right off. First time, it's a little tight fit. Now we got a couple connections here for your user interface. One is for your dryer. We'll disconnect that, and the other one is for the washer, and we'll disconnect that. All right, what we're planning on doing is, in order to gain access to the main board, is what we're going to do is we're going to slide the dryer back. And let's show you how that's accomplished. Okay, so right over here, we have a couple screws here, and we're going to remove these. And that's what's securing this unit in the front. And then we'll go ahead and remove the one on the opposite side here. And then let me get the last one off there for you. All right, for the rest of this, what we're going to have to do is go into the back. I realize that what you'll probably have to do is maybe pull this forward to get to those screws. So, I'm going to kind of move this so that you guys can see what we're doing here. All right, see this panel back here? We're going to go ahead and remove all these screws. There's approximately 6 screws on here. So we'll go ahead and we'll start removing those. And while I'm removing, you can see some of the connections. This is what we talked about earlier, that Y connection that brought the cold water into the dryer for the steam generator. We didn't hook up the vent yet, but we did get the pigtail on there, and we did get the fill hoses for the washer installed. And then later we're going to remove the shipping bolts. Now I did go ahead and move this so the camera can show you where those screws are. I'm going to leave these 2 screws in here because what I want to do is go back to the original position, but I want something to kind of hold this in place. So then once it's back in the original position, I'll go ahead and remove the last 2 screws. This panel will come off, and then we'll show you how to slide the dryer back. All right, so I'm going to leave it in this position. I'm going to go ahead and remove the last 2 screws. Okay, at this point, little plastic guard came off the back. And then what I can do is just slide this back. You don't want to get crazy. Just enough to get to your main board. I can probably go a little bit more on that. Give you a little bit more room. Now if you do have 2 people, you can actually take this dryer and just lift it right off there. You will have to disconnect your drain hose. And you will have to, the unit is unplugged. But you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so here's access to our main board, and I got to go back just a little bit farther to get to the mounting screw on there. All right, so I got the dryer back. I got access to the main board. Now you can actually slide this off, but it is a really tight fit. They used to use a screw right here, so you would remove the screw. They're no longer doing that. And then to replace, what they did is put this little locking tab here. So you just push this up, and then you're going to have to slide it back. It is real tight. You have to struggle a little bit. But if we're only doing electrical checks and we're not replacing the main board, it might be easier just to pop off the front cover. It's a little bit easier to do this than to try to slide that board off. Let's see if we can maneuver this down maybe just a little bit more, give us a little more room here so we can go ahead and show you all the components on the main board here. So, got a locking tab on the bottom. We're going to disengage that, and then we should get a little more room here. So, all right. All right, so what we did is instead of taking the whole board out, found it easier just to maybe snap off that top cover. So I did snap it off. Now remember, everything we do here, we can check from the main board. So at this point, you can go ahead and disconnect wires if you wanted to do resistance check. Me personally, I like to do voltage check. So what I would do at this point is just making sure I don't have anything grounded or anything, and then plug it back in again, and I can do voltage checks. Now, one of the things that you can start out with first, especially on a dead unit, we can go ahead, we can see if we have power coming to the main board. We have a noise filter on, but that's going to require us to go a little farther back to get to the noise filter. But we can avoid all that by going to these 2 tap relays here. We have a tap relay black and we have a tap relay yellow. And those are going to your heaters. It's a UL requirement that we break both sides of those sides of the heating element, just in case one set of contacts gets welded. We won't have the heater staying on permanently, so we actually have to close both of those relays. but this is where the power comes into the main board. Now if you notice on the black relay there's a black and a yellow wire. On the yellow relay there's a blue and a red wire. So if you go to pin 1 on the black relay, which is the black wire, and you put your meter lead set for AC voltage on pin 1 of the yellow relay, which is the blue wire, we can actually check for incoming voltage coming into the machine. So this is a good place to go ahead and check for incoming power. Now another thing that we can check from here is, of course, we can check our stator. We're no longer using a Hall sensor, so we can go ahead and check for resistance on that stator. We can check for the drain pump. We can check the door lock circuit. We can go ahead and check the themistors. So anything, like I said, that you want to check from here, we can check from the main board. Now the main board on your dryer is a little bit easier to get to. They have a little metal barrier on the top. I believe there's probably about 12 screws, or remove those screws and your main board's exposed. If you're short like me, you're probably going to have to use a ladder to get up to the top to see that. All right, before I go ahead and put this back together, I did snap off this cover just to show you there's another little PC board to the display. So you have a main board connection and you have another connection that goes to your display board. So if you have any problems with the display board, maybe not getting illumination, or a problem maybe communication, some buttons doesn't work, we can go ahead and we can check the sub PC board. So I'm going to go ahead and snap this back together again, and then we've got a little jig set up so we can do some electrical connections so we can plug it back in again. Now guys, just remember that if you're going to be doing electrical connections, we're going to go ahead and have to go ahead and hook up the control panel. We can kind of carefully balance this on here where we plug in these connections so that we can go ahead and we can do some electrical checks with the control panel installed. So. All right, before I go ahead and slide this up, I just want to point something out to you. There's this little plastic tab here, and when I slid it out, one of these went flying out of there. And so probably a good idea is just to take them out, put them somewhere, because God help you if it falls down on the bottom, you'll have to go fish it out of there. So I'm just going to put these on the side, and just before we go ahead and put the screws back in, we'll go ahead and put them in. These act kind of as a little spacer here, okay? So let's go ahead and we'll line this up. There are little glides on the side to make sure that we're lined up with the cabinet. Once we get lined up, let's make sure our wires are in the correct position, and then we can go ahead and we can slide that forward. You might have to just lift it up just a little bit. There's a couple little high spots on there, but all in all, it should slide forward pretty straightforward for you. So. All right, so just before I slide it all the way in, I'm going to go ahead and get these little spacers put back in. Now we can go ahead and we can put the screws back into the front. Now please be careful when you're doing this. Try not to go farther than the tipping point of this, so you want to make sure that the dryer doesn't come falling off the back. I had it pretty far back and it seemed like it was still kind of heavy in the front, so I wasn't too super concerned about that, but just be mindful of that. I don't want to get on my back cover. All right, I'm going to plug in the washer just to make sure everything works. Okay, and then we can also do the same thing on the dryer, except the dryer is a 220 plug, so we'll have to plug that in too and make sure the dryer works.